Okay, so welcome. We're on 9b-10a, but as I sometimes use the expression in the Gemara shir, it's like a chemical reaction. You need what's called the activation energy to get the reaction to go. So if we just started now at the sheet of Chachamim, unless you chazered like 8 minutes ago, you're like, what sheet of Chachamim? Based on what and who? So we need to go back again and see the shitas of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, respectively, on 9b in the Gemara. We're making a laning, as they say. Call it Chazara in the middle of the shir, but it's not really an in-depth thing, because we did that already last time. Yeah. Remember that we're trying to darshan the various psukim, which we don't necessarily do the Tanakh today, but all to say that's what we spent time on last go around. The fact that there's, I think in 2000 we called it a hanging chad. There's like an extra piece. What is that? It looks superfluous. Nothing in the Torah is superfluous. So it's open for a drasha. What's the drasha, right? And it depends how you're going to read those words regarding Yovel he that's in the middle of a pasuk. Remember? Yeah. And all of this is surrounding the question of when are the prohibitions of Yovel in force? How many elements of Yovel have to transpire affirmatively to make the year into the character of Yovel, even if other things are going to lapse, such that there'll be a prohibition on all elements of that, like in Shemitah, of working the land. So again, at the top of the page, just to fly through the beginning and the part that we're up to. Tanu Rabbanan Yovel he, right? And look in the Bach. Yovel afal pishlo shamtu, afal pishlo taku. Right? It would be Yovel even if they didn't do the Shmitat Karka, meaning going back to the original owners from the time of the Kibush V'Nachla, even if they didn't blow the shofar. Yachol afal pishlo shalchu. Could it be called Yovel even if they didn't send out the slaves? Talmud Lomar he. No, that has to happen. Divi Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Yovel he, Afa Pishlo Shamtu, Afa Pishlo Shalchu, two other elements, Ayachol Afa Pishlo Taku. Maybe if you didn't blow shofar, could it still be called Yovel? No. Talmud Lamar, he. So the Gemara itself kind of wonders, well, Shemikra Echad Marba, Mikra Echad Mamit, Mneimani Omer, Yovel, he. No, you don't say he over here, but Yovel. Afish lo shalchu, ve'in Yovel, elin kain taku. The Gemara itself is kind of asking, why did you choose one and not the other? You remember the sequence of the pasuk, or psukim rather, was shofar is mentioned on its own. Then came the pasuk about calling freedom in the land. Then it mentioned that it's Yovel, and then came the Shemitah Karka. I think that's my recollection. Did I get it right? Art, are you cycling through it in your head? Can you tell me? We're relying on the Baalei Kriya in our midst. Not that other people here aren't fine Baalei Kriya, but you have a penchant for having and Benny's not here, so you know what I'm saying.
Haven't done Bahar. So it's yours.
So I'm looking it up. Just Va'avarta shofar trua b'chodesh hashvi'i be'asor l'chodesh b'yom kippurim taviru shofar b'chol artzechem. Next pasuk, v'kidashtem 8 shnata 50 shana. Ukratem duror ba'aretz l'chol yoshveha Yovel hi tiyelachem. That's the highlighted words right there. V'shavtem ish el achuzato v'ish el mishpachto tashuvu. The Yovel hi tiyelachem sandwiched in between freedom in the land and the Shmitat Karka. Then the next pasuk, Yovel hi shnata 50 shana tiyelachem. Lo tizra'u v'lo tiktzeru et seficha v'lo tivtzeru et nizireha. The prohibitions are in verse 11. The conditions are in 9 and 10. So the Gemara asks, why do you go with shofar? Why don't you go with, why do you pick shofar? So the Gemara says as follows. I'm 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 lines down from the top. First word on the line is taku. He explains very simply, you can have a world where there aren't any avadim that need to be sent out. You can't have a world that exists that doesn't have a shofar in it, where somewhere's going to blow shofar. I'm going to pause here just to also mention, Benny had pointed this out last year, so just to sharpen the point. It is true that actually everybody was blowing shofars on Yovel, but the starting gun to set it off was in the Beit Din Hagadol. Okay, that's the official. And then you have right here in the Gemara, Davar Acher, Zu Mesur LeBeitin, V'Zu Eina Mesur LeBeitin. Every individual is going to decide on their own. If they have a slave, they don't have a slave, they are going to observe the mitzvah, they're going to commit an Aveira and pass over the mitzvah, not do it. But the shofar, that belongs to Beitin, because they're in the seat of the announcement. And if you look at Rashi here, Litzavot, Lishlucham, Litkoa, Bishiluach Avadim, Mesur Lichidim, Mimaein, Yivatel Yovel. No, if one person is going to decide he's not going to then shiluach avadim, is not going to be a yovel. No, that's not going to happen. Right? It's not connected to the mitzvah that's incumbent on individuals exclusively, but rather the shofar that's going to have a baked in component. And the Gemara asked, yeah, it was all over the land. Yeah,
Free for all.
yeah,
Fireworks tonight.
There you go.
yeah.
Everyone had their.
It was a free for all. Yeah,
So when did they blow it? During the day?
Yom Kippur. Yeah, during the day, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Ashkama Minyan couldn't blow until.
Well, it'd be daytime, but the point was that you had the Beit Din itself did blow shofar on that day. So means to say if there's no Beit Din Hagadol in session, then it's questionable if you could have Yovel, even if people had slaves and they sent them, even if you knew how to do the Shemitah at Karka, right? We're going to come to that Shita next, which is going to be the Rabbanan, which is what we didn't see yet. Yeah.
Carryover question from last.
Yeah,
week.
fine.
Sorry.
Sure.
But we originally came at this from the idea of the concept of Tosefet, right? Adding on. But yet.
Not. Yeah, I guess we did. Okay, I guess we did.
Well, that was the category where we entered this subject, right?
Yeah, but because the Gemara is associative, like this has nothing to do with Tosefet per se.
That was my question.
Yeah, there's not really a
We're-
Tosefet.
We're approaching this more as a when does it start? What triggers it to start, right? Or what
Yeah.
elements?
What affirmative mitzvahs need to be observed in order for the prohibitions to come into play? If you want to chart how this happened and how we got here,
No, I'll go back.
on the bottom of 8b, we quoted the words Yovel hi,
Right.
Shnata Chamishim. So those words, Yovel hi Shnata Chamishim, it's actually Shnata Chamishim Shana, actually,
And
which are actually in Pasuk 11. Now the Gemara dialed back and said, now that we analyzed those words, Yovel hi Shnata Chamishim, and it was meant to tell us something about the 50th year, is the 49th year, is the 50th year, and there's no Tosefet on Yovel. That was the thing.
Yeah.
Now we're up to, okay, so what about this extra little piece that's left over from these psukim that we haven't darshan yet? That's how we got into it.
And
That's the only connection.
then the second part of my question from last week was, I think I couldn't think of a time-bound mitzvah.
Okay,
Shabbos, Yom Tov.
it's raising the volume so Ira can hear. Yep.
It doesn't have a trigger to start. On the other hand, Shabbos is Shabbos when Shabbos is.
Even if people didn't light the candles.
Right.
Yeah.
So this one seemingly has a trigger point or needs a trigger point. And it
Yes.
seemed-
And the question is why? The
Why?
answer is, it's going to sound circular to you. Maybe it is. The source of it is right here to tell you that right here, 9b, the fact that the Torah went out of its way to speak aloud the words Yovel hi tiyeh lachem, there's something about like you need to do it somehow to make it happen. It's not just going to happen on its own, as opposed to Shemitah, which is just on a 7-year cycle. And even if, I mean, never mind, even if nobody actually has to light candles for Shemitah, right? There's no like, notice they don't have to make an announcement in the Beit Din. It's like, it's going to start. It's going to start. There's Tosefet. They'll make announcements about that because I don't want people plant. We're going to come to that later tonight. But all to say, in the analysis of the fact that Rosh Hashanah for Yovel is Aleph Tishrei, the Gemara was trying to unpack, okay, what do you mean by that? Is there a Tosefet? No, there isn't. Well, what about Tosefet? Well, there is Tosefet for Shemitah, and from Shemitah, perhaps we learn from Shemitah as the headquarters, maybe, that's the debate, Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, to the Tosefet of Shabbat and of Yom Tov. Remember? That was on 9a. That was 9a. So now 9b starts with the words on top of the page, Tana Rabbanan, Yovel hi. So why did the Torah go out of its way essentially to say again, Yovel hi? And if you look at Rashi on the top of the page, top line, Yovel hi tiyeh lachem le'el minei ktiv v'ayit shofar v'kidashtem Shnat Vavarta Shofar V'Kidashtem Shnat HaChamishim Shana Ukratem Dror V'Hadar Ktiv Yovel Hi Tialachem. It says again. V'Hadar means again. Nachmal. It says again. Yovel Hi Tialachem. Ukra Yeteru L'Drasha. It's an extra pasuk, really a fragment of a pasuk that must be open for a drasha. Yeah. So v'hachi tidrashana Yovel Hi Lachem Mikol Makom. This is how you should explain it. Yovel be Yovel for you, nonetheless. Even if you didn't do the following things: Havar shofar, v'lashuv alachuza, dahainu shmitat karkaot, shekanu zemizeh, dichtiva batar haikra, v'shavtim mishlachuzato. Afal pichein shem hayovel alav liot asur bezriu v'tzira uktzira kedichtiv lo tizra'u. The opening gambit in Rashi is there's no conditions. But then Rabbi Yehuda says, there is a condition. You absolutely need to do the Shiluach Avadim. If you didn't have a Shiluach Avadim, there's no such thing as Yovel. Rabbi Yossi says, I disagree. The Shiluach Avadim is not L'ikuva to start Yovel. Tekiyat Shofar is. So the Gemara says, what's the story with Tekiyat Shofar versus, right? So because the world could be without any slaves anymore. Again, the liberals among us, and those who are more the humanists among us, could use this as a beautiful drasha, but see, the ideal situation is there's no slaves in the world, there's no slavery, it's been abolished, and you could imagine such a world. It's in the Gemara. Yeah? But a world without a tekiyas shofar, not possible. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it's going to have a shofar. Then davar acher, it's a davar masur labeitin. Now, those are not the same answer. One of them is just a reality question. Could there be a scenario? The other one is, who's in charge? Now, I don't know that it's actually, I didn't see this in any of the Rishonim, Achronim, so if it's right, it's somewhere, and if it's wrong, I made it up. The pasuk says, Yovel Hitya Lachem, which seems to imply it's in your hands, just like Ulakachtem Lachem means everybody. Usfartem Lachem means everybody. So Yovel Hitya Lachem, there's some mitzvah to be in everybody's hands. But Rabbi Yossi argues, no, Davar Acher, it's something that's Misur Lebeitin. So the Gemara itself is going to ask, wait, why did you do Davar Acher? Why aren't you good enough with the idea that it's that there could be a world with no slaves, but there couldn't be a world with no shofar. So that's the baseline. That's what Yovel Hitya Lachem, because everybody could find a shofar, even if not everybody or not anybody has any slaves. So the Gemara says, if you're going to say I'Afshar, the lake Chad B'Sofa Olam D'Lo Mishlach, why was there a Davar Acher necessary? Because maybe there's someone in the far-flung reaches of the world who has a slave and they're not following the halacha properly. And since it's not full compliance, you might say, well, that ruins it. No. So, no. The point is that in the end, the authority is vested in the Beit Din, HaGadol, and when they're going to blow shofar, that's going to do it. So the Gemara continues, Bishlam Rabbi Yossi, the Kiddush Kamer Tameh. We got the rationale for Rabbi Yossi. He explained to us why he thinks the issue is so much dependent on the shofar. El Rabbi Yehuda, but for Rabbi Yehuda, who claimed that the issue was the sending out of the slaves, my taima, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, ukratem duror ba'aretz, because savar mikra nidrash lefanav lo lifnei panav. The words Yovel Hi Tialachem are immediately preceded by the mitzvah of shiluach avadim, ukratem duror ba'aretz l'chol yoshveh. So that's why the words Yovel Hi Tialachem are in the pasuk where they are. They're immediately following the issue of shiluach avadim. But Rabbi Yehuda says to Rabbi Yossi, I can't accept that you want to darshan a full pasuk earlier, skipping over Shiluach Avadim. If that's what the Torah wanted to say, then it would have said something about blowing shofar and then said, Yovel Hi Tialachem. Why did it wait till now? Must be because the linchpin that we need in order for it to be called Yovel is what? Specifically going to be the sending out of the slaves. Sorry, I made a mistake. I'm going to correct it right now. I already announced, it was announced by email, but just in case. Tonight's shir is sponsored by Lori and me. Le'ilui Nishmat, our Zeta, Lori's grandfather, Nathan Stender, Nachum Ben Yichil Baruch, Hashem Shavan Aliyah. Okay, I had it in mind this morning and all that. And it was a shir last night today. Okay, it's a twofer when you do a day of learning. So for $180, it can be yours. You have to give it stock anyway. Why not? Be Marvin store. Help. Okay, yeah.
So what do you do with the fact that the Avadim are actually free on Rosh Hashanah? They just have to stick around till.
That's only according to Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. And he maintains that they're not freed until Yom Kippur, but they're in some intermediate status. Yeah, which again, for drasha purposes, is very beautiful. There's 10 days where the hired help, so to speak, is sitting with you at the table, is your equal. You should be aware. They should be aware. They're sitting with crowns. That's what the Gemara says. Beautiful. Crowns on their heads, they're eating. I don't know how it actually played out in real life, right? But at least that's what Bishmal ben Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka thinks, because he wants to know how could it be that you're calling it Yovel starting Aleph Tishrei and nothing's going to happen to the slaves till the 10th.
Yeah.
So the other side argues no. So other parts of Yovel start. That part is on specifically when you blow the shofar, which is not on Rosh Hashanah, but is on the 10th day of Rosh Hashanah, aka Yom Kippur, like the Torah says. Yeah. So good, clear. Okay. Dekule alma dror lashon cherut. My mashma. The fact that everybody holds that the word dror means freedom. How do you know? My mashma. Netiya, like we learned, ein dror er lashon cherut. Amar Yehuda, ma lashon dror kimedayer be dayara. Umovil schara b'chol medina. Dror means milashon ladur, to live somewhere. You can live wherever you want. Freedom of movement, and you can do business wherever you want. So the point is you could travel. So the freedom of movement means you're not kafuf to one person, one property. You can go wherever you want. That's what dror is freedom, is cherut. So Amar Bechia bar Abba, Amar Yochanan, Zudi Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi. Fine, we heard the opinions of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. This is the new part for tonight. They think if any of those three doesn't happen, didn't do shofar, didn't free the slaves, didn't do shmid karka, any of those three that don't happen, whole thing falls apart. Why? Kasavre mikra nidus lefanav lifnei fanav ula achrav. They are of the opinion that you could be doresh, that fragment of the pasuk, Yovel hi tiyelachem, backwards and 2 steps backwards and forwards as well. V'aktiv Yovel, it doesn't say specifically Yovel. The haud afilu b'chutz la'aretz. Right, so maybe the fact that it has the word Yovel, Rashi, l'rabot mashma b'mashma Yovel mikol makom. So if it says Yovel, this Yovel, the truth is, I think, is not the Yovel in this pasuk. I think it's the one from pasuk Yod Aleph. Yovel hi shnata chamishim shana tiyeh lachem lo tizrau lo tiktzeru et sefichev lo tivtzeru et nizrau. In other words, the Gemara says, but it says the word Yovel and Yovel hi. It doesn't say like, sounds like regardless of what's going on, whether you did the mitzvahs or not. And the answer is no. The fact that this is the word Yovel is to include Chutz la'aretz. Again, why is there any conversation about Chutz la'aretz? Doesn't everyone live in Eretz Yisrael? No, not since Beit Rishon. So the Gemara is just telling you, could be some people are living in Chutz la'aretz. It's right here. Okay. V'aktiv ba'aretz. Okay. Actually uses that expression that it's going to be ba'aretz. Where is that? Okratem dror ba'aretz. So hahu bisman shenoig dror ba'aretz noig b'chutz la'aretz. Bisman she'ena noig ba'aretz ena noig b'chutz la'aretz. You can't have Yovel outside of Eretz Yisrael. You need Eretz Yisrael, but once the Eretz Yisrael portion is happening, so then if you're in chutz la'aretz, you're also subject to Yovel. Now, not in shmitat karka, right? I mean, it's not kedusha Eretz Yisrael, but sending out the slaves and blowing the shofar. That's going to happen. That has to happen, right? So just fascinating idea. According to the Chachamim, anything, it's a very fragile institution, Yovel, will fall very quickly. If you didn't blow shofar, or you didn't do Shmid Karka in Eretz Yisrael, or you didn't send out the slaves wherever you live,
No gray area.
will fall apart. There won't be a Yovel.
For how long?
Until the next cycle. Yeah, skip. Yeah.
How about the argument we just went through that could be messed up by one person who doesn't free slaves? If you require all three to happen, doesn't that mean it's almost impossible?
Yeah, the Chachamim's view is so maximalist. I don't know how it would ever come to be.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's just that makes it impossible.
Sounds like it. I mean, the most possible of them all clearly is Rabbi Yossi, because he says you're going to blow the shofar and a Beit Din HaGadol. So this is an extra Gadol blow the shofar. Too bad on you if you didn't do your own mitzvah. That's between you and God. But you're not the whole year. You're stuck. It's still going to be an issue if you plow and reap and all of that, right? Rabbi Yehuda. So yeah, there's also sort of that problem. So what if people aren't doing the shluach havadim, right? By the by, the Nevi'im, the end of Beit Rishon, are railing about the freeing of the slaves. that all the people free the slaves, and then they take them back as slaves right after that.
Mhm.
It's like was not the point. And if that's how you're acting, so you're playing fast. It's making like a game out of it. And the Nevi'im rail against it. I mean, it's scary because in the end, it does end in the Churban in the end. There's sort of this one of the elements of the corruption. And the Torah in Parshat Bechukotai says, "Az tiratza haaretz et shabtoteha." It's referring to this Shemitah, Yovel, etc. So,
Big rush between that and the Pure comments, right? It's the same.
let's not go down that road right now.
Right, no, I understand.
Yeah,
but-
yeah, but there's a question there. Also, the difference here was there's a moral issue.
Well, I would say there's an ideal state.
Yeah.
The ideal state is that you don't have any opponents. And just like that, there's an ideal state where, just let us go free,
Okay. Yeah. The difference was, and what the Nevi'im were going crazy about is everyone was doing the technical aspect of the halacha, but totally circumventing what the actual spirit of the law was. Yeah, the letter, but not the spirit, as some would say. Sometimes a critique leveled against Klal Yisrael by our enemies, but sometimes our own Nevi'im said, it's not doing right by Hashem, and He sees what you're doing. It's like,
is there any remnant of Yovel now? I mean, we had a Yovel.
there is possibly a remnant of Yovel in the sounding of the shofar at Ne'ilah every year. That some say is maybe just a zecher to Yovel from back in the day. Now, that makes no sense, right? Because we do it every single year. Yeah, but it's a zecher of some kind. So to do it every year. But without going into details, I'm going to move on to the next sugya. But just so you're aware,
We blow shofar on Yom Kippur?
no, there's a lot of discussion about what the shofar is doing at the end of Yom Kippur, at the end of Ne'ilah. One of the ideas is maybe it's the remnant of the year of Yovel, and they did it every year as a placeholder. What?
Then you're blowing it on the 11th.
So they used to blow it earlier, but we wait till the end. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that for the shofar for Yovel was blown right during the day.
Nachon.
Now-
So that we're not going to do. But a zecher liz, they moved. There are different theories about what it's doing there. Different people over the ages had different ideas about why we're blowing shofar. It's not a mitzvah min Torah. It's not a mitzvah min Rabbanan. It's not in the Gemara. You must blow shofar at the end of Ne'ilah. So what's it doing there? Some say it's to signify the end of the fast. Some say it's the arrival of Mashiach Tzidkenu. Some say it's lamenting the fact that Shekhinah has gone back, as it were. It was very close, so to speak, in a spiritual sense to us, and now it's departed. Some say it's to lock in all the themes of the Yom Noraim. So one of the ideas is it's like Zecher Yovel on some level. Again, how much of Zecher is it? You're right. It's probably really on the 11th. It's like 1 second you extended. The point is, for those who are in the SCP share, last night we were talking about if you keep your shal shuddas going a little longer, an hour or something. So what do you do about benching and all that? There's a saying would say. So the truth is, Yantif didn't entirely end because it's the end, but you didn't say Baruch Hu yet. No one said Baruch HaMavdil. It's kind of still the 10th, but it's a little bit already the 11th, as you point out, because it's already the time of, you're not supposed to do it early. Again, so Tzarech Iyun on that, but it could be that it's some kind of a remnant for the shofar itself. If you look in the Haftorah for Parsha for Yom Kippurim, you'll see there some of the critiques that are leveled by the Navi, may be related to some of the things we're learning about now. One other thing I was going to say, and we've got to go into the Gemara, which is Yovel is clearly a very fragile institution, very ethereal institution. While Shemitah is called Shabbat Haaretz, Yovel is not really called Yom Tov Haaretz or something like that. There are certain parallels, but there are certain critical differences as well, right? So like we always say, Mekadesh Yisrael v'Azmanim, the months are going to be determined by the Beit Din. We don't mean that in the middle on the 17th day of the month, the Beit Din could just get up and say, it's Rosh Chodesh. They can't really do that. Not only they wouldn't, but they can't really do that. The leeway is right within the period of time with the molad, etc., and where they're going to be ma'aber the shana that they do have the koach to do, right? But all to say that that there is a certain control factor, some element when it comes to Yom Tov on the part of the Chachamim by the Beit Din of the Beit Din HaGadol in Yerushalayim, and that's also true about Yovel. They have to blow shofar, tend the hands of the people. They have to do shiluach havadim. They have to do shmitat karkaot.
So do they have to determine that you have enough Jews living there?
Right,
Okay.
exactly. So they have to
So
determine
that's
that.
why it's in the basement.
And that's why that's in the Bezdin. The shofar begins in the Bezdin. The sphera of Yovel v'safarta lecha. You count the 7 years. It's in Parshat Bahar. 7 times 7. That's going to be done by the Beit Din. Shaila if it needs a bracha in the Beit Din or not. Interesting, yeah. They didn't need to do it in shul. They had to do it in the Beit Din. And I'm just pointing out that, like Yom Tov, Yovel is also somewhat in the hands of the people of the Beit Din Hagadol, maybe of all the people, right? In a certain way. And it approximates Sfirat HaOmer, where everybody knows if you didn't count any days of Sfirah, it's still going to be Shavuot, right? But on a certain level, it is the fact that Klal Yisrael is counting 49 days, then comes the day of Shavuot, is not unrelated to 7 cycles of Shemitah, culminating in a 50th year of Yovel. The Mekubalim have a lot to say about this. I have no access and no knowledge. I'm not saying anything about it. The Hasidim write about a lot about this issue. And among the Misnagdim, Ayin Shem Tiferet Yisrael wrote in his commentary in the Mishnah toward the end of Seder Nezikin. It's a very long essay where he talks about how the Yovlot and the Shemitas and the Yovels has to do with the age of the universe, the whole thing about this. It's quite mystical, and I'll leave it right there. And we're done. Let's go back to the Gemara. Yeah.
Okay, it's hard, most people, I would say, probably only saw what happened in the basement of Gadol one time in their lives.
Yeah, maybe.
Because
I mean,
of
if
the
it,
way,
Alila Rago, come 3 times a year, maybe.
Yovel.
Oh, Yovel. Yeah, once
Yovel.
once in their life. Yeah.
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 So they had to write it down very carefully what they did, so
Right.
50 years later, the new
Right.
guy would know.
Right. Right. Which could also explain how it is that Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda are literally disagreeing about whether Yovel is a blank year standalone or whether it's part of the next 49-year count. We saw that. You remember that was the bottom of 8b to the top of 9a. Yeah. And that's what you have here.
After the year of Yovel?
Right.
Or?
That's the exact question. Right. Rabbi Yehuda thinks that year 50 is both year 50 from one count, and it's also called year 1 of the next 49 years to come.
Used to say, when we had a surprise 80th birthday,
Yeah.
right? He says, but I'm not 80, I'm 81. I've already completed 80. I'm now into my 80th birthday.
Celebrating the accomplishment. They did 80. Yeah. I thought you were going to say the expression that people say once in a Yovel,
Yeah, okay.
which in our case is a long time ago. Back to the Gemara. The next thing that it's a Rosh Hashanah for is Netiya. Netiya, plantings. Plantings. Now, for what purpose? Orla. V'la Netiya. Gemara, Rashi rather. Right? How do you know the Rosh Hashanah is the Rosh Hashanah Shalat Tishrei?
Huh?
So Minalan, you look in the Gemara now. Minalan, Dichtiv, Shalosh Shanim Arelim, Uchtiv, Uvashana Haravi'it. So in the Torah, when the Torah describes in Parshat Kedoshim, you have the idea of planting. 3 years Orla. And in the 4th year, the fruits are Kodesh Hilulim LaHashem. Means you're allowed to eat them in Yerushalayim, but you can't eat them outside of Yerushalayim. So here the Gemara describes, how do we know this? Shalosh shnim arelim, uchtiv v'shana revi'it, v'yalif shana shana mitishrei. And the fact that it's referring to shanim each time, not chodashim, but shanim, we learn it from Tishrei. This Gemara is going to sound oh so familiar because we just had it on 8b. It's a carbon copy, but another context. Dichtiv mireshit hashana, v'ligmar shana shana minisan. Okay, you're taking it from the pasuk in Parshat Akev. Thank you. Eretz Asher Hashem Lokecha Doresh Ota Tamid. Enei Hashem Lokecha Ba Mereshit Hashana v'Ad Acharit Shana. So v'ligmar shana shana minisan. Why don't you use Nisan? Then it would be a month type thing. How do you know Nisan's not the beginning? Dichtiv Rishon Hu Lachem v'Chodshei Hashana. It's the first of the months of the year. It has the word Hashanah. No. Danin shana she'eni machadashim, mishana she'eni machadashim. Vendanin shana she'eni machadashim, mishana she'eshim machadashim. Right? We're going to draw the link between two psukim that only deal in categories of shanim and not a pasuk that has shanim and chodashim. Therefore, we're not going to use Nisan. This exact Gemara was already on page 8b after the word Vlashmitin. How do you know Shemitah starts at the beginning of Tishrei and not some other month like Nisan or something? Answer, same thing is going on here. It gave exactly the same response here. Okay? Next section of the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan. Echad Noteya, Echad HaMavrich, Vechad HaMarkiv. Erev Shvi'it, Shloshim Yom Lifnei Rosh Hashanah, Al Tolo Shana, Umuto L'Kain B'Shvi'it. Hachud Mishloshim Yom Lifnei Rosh Hashanah, Lo Al Tolo Shana, V'as L'Kain B'Shvi'it. Upeirot Zu, Netiya Zu, sorry, we'll stop there, sorry. So Noteya is you're putting a sapling in the ground. Mavrich is you're taking a branch and putting it into the ground, pulling it down and putting it into the ground, covering it with soil till it takes root. And then you're going to cut it off from the original tree, and that's going to make a new tree. Markiv is grafting, putting two branches together, or putting a branch on another branch, tying it on till it connects. You see that in Rashi here. Mavrich kofefet azmorot ba'aretz shikorin profina. No idea. Markiv, it's Old French. I don't speak Old French. Ilan, I don't speak much of New French either anymore. Ilan bechavero shekorin onistir. I don't know. Okay. Altal Shana kivin shigia yom echad b'tishrei. Altal Shana l'minu shnei orla. If you put it in 30 days or more before Rosh Hashanah, then that month that is elapsed, the month of Elul, will be counted as year one. And when you hit Rosh Hashanah, you'll be in year 2 of Orla. It's only planted for a year. It took root in the previous year because you gave it 30 days. Therefore, once you hit Rosh Hashanah, that's already year 2 of the 3, maybe 4-year count, depending on whether you're going to bring it to Yerushalayim or not. If it's less than 30 days, then that planting, if it's a year going into Shemitah, you would not be able to keep because there's Tosefet Shvit of 30 days. Even if it's not one of those years, regardless, it's not going to count as a year's worth of Orla, and Rosh Hashanah will be the onset of year 1. The assumption here in Metziut is that the amount of time it takes for plants that are planted to take root is 30 days. Probably a little less, so 30 days, like, that's for sure going to work. So now, if you look at Daf Yud Amud Aleph, points out, Uperu Netiya Zu, Asurin Ad Tu Bishvat. Okay? These fruits, this is going back on the first clause, that 30 days have elapsed. So you planted right before Rosh Chodesh Elul. You had a whole month. Came Rosh Hashanah. Now you're in year 2. The next year you come to Rosh Hashanah. That's already year 3 is starting. Come the next year, you want to say year 4? No, you have to wait until you get to Tu B'Shvat, and then it will end. Rashi, top of the page, explains this. Rashi explains, Va'afal pisha amarnu al tolo shana im chantu ba'per l'achar Rosh Hashanah shel shana ha'revi'it, it should be. You look at the Bach, right? Right? If you're going to say that already in the 4th year, the budding already took place after Rosh Hashanah, right, of the 4th year, starting the 4th year, miyad, immediately that happened. No, adayin asurin hein olamit mishum orla. There's still not going to be permissible at all. This year's worth. Why? Because of orla sha'ava pish Rosh Hashanah tishrei l'netiya tu b'shvat Rosh Hashanah la ilan v'zu kvar na'aseit ilan. There's a shift in language that's going on here. The sapling is called the Netiya, but once it takes root, it changes its name to be an Ilan. And you'll see the Mishnah had said that while Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah for Netiya, and Netiya is supposed to be supposedly shorthand for Netiya, Mavrich, and Markiv, when it comes to Tu B'Shvat, then it says Rosh Hashanah la Ilan. So one place called Netiya, then it's called an Ilan. How come? That's what he's explaining here. That it already became an Ilan, therefore you have to wait for the Rosh Hashanah of the Ilan, which is going to be Tu B'Shvat. Ein shna tamid chadash latzeit midei orla ad Tu B'Shvat. Al misham ulahalan imichantu ba'peiro din revayit laleim. But if after Tu B'Shvat, then you'll have the chanata. That's when you have the flowering after that. By the way, machloket about what chanata is. Is it the appearance of the flowers, the falling off of the flowers? What is it? There's a machloket and mitziut, what it is, actually, between various Rishonim. And so then it would ought to be din revai, right? Because after 3 years orla, it's din revai. Revai means year 4. And that's Kodesh Yilum LaHashem, like the pasuk says in Parsha Kedoshim. You'd have to bring it up to Yerushalayim if you wanted to eat it that year, right? Or, by the way, you could redeem it on coins and bring the coins to Yerushalayim and then buy fruit in Yerushalayim, just like Maser Sheni, essentially. So again, if these things happen more than 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, the fruit of that planting is still going to be usher until Tu B'Shvat of that 4th year since the tree was planted. Even though you'll see, yeah, but 3 years already finished the previous Rosh Hashanah that just passed, because Elul was 1 month, but it became a year as soon as you get the Tishrei. That was already year 2.
Yeah.
Then you got to year 3 already. We're back to Francis 80 with 80, 81. Yeah, but you complete the year 3. Then you come into year 4. See, it's year 4 Rosh Hashanah. No, you have to wait until Tu B'Shvat, because the first year was not actually a year. The first year was actually really a month. So that's the Gemara says you have to wait till it fully become an Ilan until it's up to that.
What the conclusion is, I'm not quite sure I understand how it's connected to distinction between Netiya and Ilan. When does it?
Netiya is the sapling.
When does it become an Ilan?
That's very cute.
No, that,
It becomes yeah. It becomes it goes from being a Netiya to being an Ilan, it would seem, at the time when it reached the 3rd year. Even though it took root right away, the Ilan, it doesn't have that standing until it's been implanted 3 years. And that's why it's Rosh Hashanah Ilan. Some Rishonim make more of a tzimus about this than others. Rashi just happens to mention the last of the wide lines of Rashi. V'zukvar nased Ilan. All right? It says Rosh Hashanah Ilan. So if you look at second to last line in the wide lines of Rashi on the top, so line 3 of Rashi is the other way of saying it. At the end of the line, Sha'afa Pisha Rosh Hashanah Tishrei L'Netiya Tu B'Shvat Rosh Hashanah Ilan. V'zukvar nased Ilan. Lefichein Shnatam Mitchadeshet L'Tzeit Midei Orla Ad Tu B'Shvat. Because that's what becomes an Ilan. Aval Misham L'Halan after Tu B'Shvat, anything after that, there's any chanata, that's already din revai. Lechol b'Yerushalayim, you can eat in Yerushalayim. Uvetetvav l'shana haba'ah Tu B'Shvat the next year. Yatsumi de revai peirot. They're not in the 4th year anymore. Peirot chanutim ba mikan ve'elach lekachu ilulah shloshim shlif Rosh Hashanah shemamar hetera mi Tu B'Shvat v'ad Rosh Hashanah. All right, so the idea here is that the 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, it's gonna be mamaher the heter that from when you could use the fruits, that in year 5, let's say you didn't do anything in year 4, between Tu B'Shvat and Rosh Hashanah of year 4, really, on the calendar, that's already year 5. Even though, and the point here is, because you didn't plant like 8 minutes before Rosh Hashanah, or 2 days before Rosh Hashanah, you planted 30 days before Rosh Hashanah. The kunz here, if you will, is those 30 days are counted like a year. But if you did that, then it's still going to go on a certain cycle. So that you wait for the Tu B'Shvat in year 4 before you're free and clear to say that now it's the 5th year.
The 4th year starts at Tu B'Shvat, but the 5th year starts at the following Rosh Hashanah. It's only 9 months since the 4th year.
Yes, but the point of the gap between Tu B'Shvat and Rosh Hashanah, you have more of a heter than you otherwise would. That's what you were memayer by planting it 30 days before Rosh Hashanah in year 0, which became year 1 retroactively. Yeah.
And I had inner peace on this whole thing by saying that once it started in the cycle, you don't change until the end of the cycle. So it started in Tishrei as a sapling or whatever.
Yeah, sapling. It's Netiya.
And then once it finished that cycle, it then flipped over to Tu B'Shvat because now it's a tree. But if you're telling me that it goes back then.
No. You're what you said just now is correct. It does start. It becomes a tree, and when you get to the Rosh Hashanah Ilan, you get a bonus. What's the bonus? From Tu B'Shvat until Rosh Hashanah in that year, you would have said, "Wait a minute. When you planted 30 days for Elul, let's say we just play like this: 30 days for Elul. Let's say that halacha didn't exist. So who cares if you planted 30 days for Tishrei to Tishrei? That's going to be 1 year. That's a full year. a second year, a third year, then a fourth year. When you get to Rosh Hashanah the next year, so that's already the fifth year, but right, you get into the fifth year. But what we do have as a halacha is 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, you planted, and the Netiya took root. Now, when you got to Rosh Hashanah, you're already into year 2. It says if a whole year went by. Now you're going to go and that's year 2. Finish year 2, you do year 3. Now you come into year 4 on Tu B'Shvat. That's when it's going to flip. Okay. Year 3 on Tu B'Shvat is going to flip to Revai, and year 4 on Tu B'Shvat is going to flip to year 5. That's what you see on Tu B'Shvat. And that's why it's confusing for people.
Cycle.
Right.
You change mid-cycle. That's how I sort of.
Right.
I
Right.
had your exact same question.
Yeah. That's the idea. And the Gemara asks, how do you know this? Minahan Emile, right? Amar B'chi bar Ala Rabbi Yochanan umatu ba mishmei Rabbi Yanai Amar Kra uvashana haraviit uvashana chamishit pa'amim sheba raviit v'adayin asura mishum orla pa'amim sheba chamishit v'adayin asura mishum ravai. You're gonna see that the fact that it used the phraseology that it did. We'll have to leave this for next week, I guess. We're gonna have to move this year to another time. I guess after tomorrow. I don't know. It's gonna be very late year, and I'm gonna do this, but we'll figure it out because I don't know what else to do. The idea here is that sometimes you're gonna have. The fact that the Vavs are here basically teaches us that sometimes you're going to have a situation where it could be the 4th year and it's still Asa because of Orla, and it could be the 5th year, but it's still Asa because of Revai. It'll just depend on whether you planted 30 days before Rosh Hashanah or not. That's going to make the difference. Anyway, of course, as always, the Gemara continues, but we'll have to stop here for tonight. And this year is recorded, so you tell all your friends, whoever wants to listen to it, watch it, what have you, you're welcome to do so. Next week, the shiur will not be at 7:30 because it's the annual meeting. So we'll have to do it. I think that's why I have to do it later. I don't know what else to do.
Know the day?
Tuesday, I don't know what I have. I have to check what I have Monday. Tuesday is SCP, and Thursday night already. I got them out of here. So,
Well, SCP is after davening, you still have it before davening.
ooh, maybe unless I have a meeting before. I have to check my calendar. I'm checking my calendar.
Seven-
I'll let you know. Lila Tov.